So, I went to my first ever glassblowing workshop, and honestly, it was one of the hottest, heaviest, and most magical things I ever tried. I had no idea what to expect, but I ended up learning so much about this craft. In this video, I'll show you what I made, how the whole process actually works, and share some really interesting facts about glassblowing. So let's get into this. I went to Molten 1090 in London for a whole afternoon of learning the basics, and we actually got to make two pieces, a paperweight and a glass bowl. The instructor gave us a quick intro and demonstration with the tools, and honestly, I was a bit nervous. The glass looks like something you're absolutely not supposed to touch, but the whole studio was so inspiring, like stepping into this tiny industrial art world. So after choosing our colors, we started working with the molten glass. You keep reheating it, shaping it with wooden blocks, metal tools, or even wet newspaper. Everything happens so fast because the glass cools within seconds. You're basically racing against time the entire session. The thing that surprised me the most was just how complex this craft is. Becoming a glass blower takes years. Most professionals train for around 3 to 6 years, usually through an apprenticeship, and even then they say you never really master the glass. The material is unpredictable, and beginners spend years just developing their muscle memory to work with it. And then there's the pottery comparison, because pottery is everywhere and everyone knows someone who's done pottery class or has a wheel at home now, but I generally never hear anyone say they picked up glassblowing as a hobby. And the reason is actually quite simple. So both pottery and glassblowing are ancient fire-based crafts, but pottery is slow, more like meditative and controlled. Glassblowing is very fast, hot, and very teamwork heavy. You often have seconds to shape the glass before it cools, and pottery is much safer and way more accessible, while glassblowing is definitely not something you'd be doing with kids or, just by yourself. Also, you can buy a wheel and have a little pottery studio at home, but a glassblowing studio with furnaces running at over 1,000 degrees, I don't think not exactly affordable or easy to access to that. And you don't come across many glass studios either, not even in London. Safety and teamwork are such a huge part of the process. The furnaces burn constantly, you have to wear eye protection, and most pieces require 2 people. One person turns the pipe while the other shapes the glass. Especially if you're a beginner, you have to have someone there. And a little bit of history, because I always love that. Glassblowing started around the 1st century in the Roman Empire, and it completely changed the accessibility of glass. Before that, glass was rare and expensive. After the invention of a blowpipe, it became widely used in everyday life, and what's fascinating is that many of the traditional tools used today are almost unchanged from those early days. If you're wondering what a typical first glass piece looks like to make, here's a step-by-step we followed. First, you gather the molten glass onto a pipe. It feels kind of like scooping honey. Then you roll it onto a marver to shape it. You blow into the pipe to create a little bubble. You reheat it constantly so it stays soft enough to work with. Then comes the shaping, usually wooden blocks, paddles, or even wet newspaper. If you want to color, you roll the hot glass in tiny colored shards that melt instantly. Once the shape is right, the piece gets transferred to another rod so you can finish the top. Then you tap it lightly, it breaks off, which is terrifying, and it goes straight into a kiln to cool slowly over hours. The whole process feels a bit like choreography. You're constantly rotating, moving back and forth to the furnace, shaping, reheating, and the glass sets the pace, not really you. When I finally saw my finished piece a few days later, cooled down and not glowing orange anymore, I was honestly so proud. They're not perfect, but that's kind of the charm of handmade glass. I genuinely love the bowl I made, and I can't imagine using anything else for a while. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this and you want to see more creative workshops or behind the scene craft videos from London, Let me know in the comments and don't forget to subscribe.